Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Open Table Adventures. As always, I'm Dan the Baker. Welcome back to Table Talks. This is our little interview series where we talk to some of ours and hopefully your favorites tabletop content creators. Today, I have my lovely friend Danny. Danny, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I always forget that your name, your name is my name. So when you said
Yeah.
Dan the Baker, I'm like, that's not me. I was like, am
It
I
is
the
actually
baker?
it is funny because I most of my family calls me Danny. Like I went by
Yeah,
Danny for most of my like childhood and stuff, and it was only when I got to like college that I started going by Dan.
that's
So
so
I
funny.
could have been Danny the baker.
Dan the Baker has a better ring to
It
it.
does, yeah, it rolls off the tongue. Anyways, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Hey everybody. My name is Danny Quach. My pronouns are he, him. You can find me all over the internet at Brutal Dan. That's BR00TALDAN. Even though I go by Danny, I just realized now my handle is Brutal Dan. That's my old StarCraft Brood War BattleNet handle that has just stuck with me throughout the years of my time in board games and tabletop. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I scream loudly about diverse creators making cool shit across. Oh, are we allowed to cuss in this?
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, okay. That is making cool shit around board games or tabletop RPGs and trying to raise awareness of different marginalized creators across the spectrum. So
Totally great. Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, yeah, if you guys don't know Danny, you absolutely should know Danny. He is wonderful. Um, I think to start off, I think I want to ask, how is Bowser?
Bowser's the best. I've been traveling so much for work and play as well. So he's been hanging out with grandparents a lot. So he's getting
Mm,
spoiled
yes.
AF.
Bowser is
But he,
Danny's dog, by the way, for
yeah,
context.
we should say
Yeah.
that. Bowser the
Put a
corgi,
picture up.
aka Bowser Butternubs. Yeah, put a picture up. Bing.
Mhm.
He's he's my companion of almost 10 years, my ride or die, and I get to see him in a couple weeks. So I'm super stoked to be
Oh, for
meeting him.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Ah, nice. Nice reunion. Um,
Yeah.
Great. I would love to just to really start off. I would love to hear about your just how you got started in like tabletop and just in the gaming space in general. Because I know you do a lot with like board games as well. I guess which came first, the chicken or the egg with that?
Yeah, board gaming actually came first. So I got into board games. I've played board games and tabletop RPGs, kind of just like sprinkling throughout. My earliest memory of way back when I was born. I don't know if you want to go that far back, but tabletop has always been tabletop analog gaming has always been kind of a fixture in my family. It was one of the things where my older cousins and my older brother were hogging the NES and the
Mhm.
Sega Genesis. Then me and my cousins would always have something else to play. And one of my earliest memories is like a Chinese game. It was pretty much sorry, but the pieces were like these little ornate like marbled horses, and they were in like the primary colors blue, red, yellow, and green. And you were just trying to get your horses into the stable, and it was like a roll and move game. But I can remember playing that like when I was like 3 or 4,
Mhm.
and the big mass market games that just aren't the same anymore, like Mousetrap. We played Mousetrap a lot and was scared of rubber bands breaking, putting up that
Yeah.
Rube Goldberg
Oh my
machine.
gosh. Uh,
And games like Monopoly and Life, and it kind of died down when it became like the age of the internet. I
mhm.
was born in the 90s, and it was when we still had dial-up back then, and that's when online gaming started becoming more of a thing, and there was like a big push into trying to create more video games, so like the next
Mhm.
generations of video games were coming out. So that kind of took a back burner, but with gaming itself, it provided myself as well as my family a way to kind of learn how to assimilate into American culture. My parents are immigrants, and I was first generation born here. All my cousins were born back over in Vietnam or Cambodia, and gaming itself, whether video gaming or what have you, was a way for us to connect with other kids in a way that was meaningful. Even if there was a language barrier or even if there was a cultural barrier, we could always sit down in front of a TV or in front of a board game and like know the rules and know how to play on like a universal level. So that was kind of like my first inkling of like, oh, gaming is gonna be a pivotal, like a mainstay in my life. And I kind of went throughout college just like being a huge Nintendo nerd, but then like started playing like more of these, like when the board game renaissance kind of started happening with like Settlers Catan and Ticket to Ride. Like those games started like permeating my video game space. Like, hey, instead of playing video games, let's start playing this, or let's have card game nights and things like that. So that kind of wet my whistle, and I always tell this story about like how I got into it. But I moved down to Florida for a job. My family lives in Georgia, and my brother bought me a gift card to a store that he thought was a video. I think he just Googled game store in Florida, and he found this place called Cool Stuff Inc., which is a huge, now that I know, it's a huge like online retailer and distribution center for board games and Magic and card games and all that. And he got me a gift card to that. I'm assuming, thinking that it was going to be
like a GameStop or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I show up, and there's just like people playing Magic, and there's like Pokemon cards and like walls of board games, and I was like, okay, well, I have money here in a gift card. Let's buy some games. And I bought 3 of my first board games. It was Takanoko, which is a game about pandas eating bamboo and a farmer that doesn't want him to do it. And that was kind of like my first foray into like understanding, oh, there's like this nerd subculture of like tabletop gaming. And that just made me super excited about board games and like how we can be at a table and really tell stories even with board game mechanics, and like hop into these worlds where you are trying to fulfill these goals with this panda eating bamboo, or it just snowballed into this idea of like, oh, all these new games are coming out. I love learning them. I love teaching them. And then I started getting into it with my work friends. And then that morphed into, okay, I don't want to annoy my work friends with all these new games every single time, but there has to be people that are passionate about this. And that's when I turned to social media, because social media has always been a part of my life too. As a queer person of color, it was I knew it was a steadfast way for me to find people like myself. So I found a board game community on Twitter, and that sprouted into people that I still hang out with today. And this was honestly like almost eight or so years ago, which is wild to think about. And I started creating content about board games, and the reason I started doing it was because a lot of the board game content that I was consuming, this was before the TikTok era, this was like when people still used YouTube for long form content. A lot of the content that I saw or was consuming, I didn't see anybody like me, and that was like my little turning point of like, oh, well, let me create content this way. I can get out in front of more eyes, and then I can start finding my community out there. And lo and behold, I found a beautiful and amazing community of people of color, of queer people, people of marginalized genders, and it was probably one of the coolest things, because this was like adult era, right? Like we all have jobs and stuff, but it was kind of like a renaissance of my own to know that like people are out there are playing, and they enjoy play, and they enjoy the idea of getting around a table and just like goofing off and having some snacks and drinks and just have fun. And that was my foray into content creation with board games. And then board games, of course, is kind of adjacent to tabletop RPGs. And
skip away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they are, I mean, that's actually one of my one of my conundrums, because I know that board games and tabletop RPGs are adjacent, but a lot of the times people play board games for a reason. They want rules, they want on the rails, whatever. Tabletop RPGs with the collaborative storytelling, you can improv and you can explore stories, but you might have to you feel like you might have to be on the spot. So I see that there's two different audiences, and one of my favorite things is like finding games that like merge the two.
Yeah, that center of the Venn diagram, those a lot of fun.
Exactly. And even like I think a lot of board gamers, they don't realize that like when they say they like a theme of a game and they get into it, and even though they're doing XYZ, they're telling the story of the board game. And those are the types of moments where I'm like, you could be a good storyteller. Like there's systems out there that are rules light, or if you're worried about the rules or not knowing all the rules, there are people out there willing to help you. And that's one of my favorite things, is when those two paths kind of cross of these two worlds that I know are so close together. But I started streaming more, especially during lockdown, and I was invited to do a lot of one-shots with all these different systems. So of course I've played D&D before, but never really moved past like level 3 or 4 with these campaigns. I've never really had a long-term campaign. But then I got invited to like a Monster of the Week one-shot, and then I got invited to a Call of Cthulhu one-shot, and then I got invited to XYZ, and I just started, again, another resurgence, another renaissance. Like, oh, there's different types of tabletop RPGs out there that I had never thought about. So then I started looking into indie games and solo journaling games and two-player games and games that you can play through text, like Alice is Missing, and it's just like boom, 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 all these connections again. And that's when I started deep diving into it. And that's kind of like within those 3 to 4 years of board game content creation and putting stuff online and going to conventions and demoing board games and being contracted out to do marketing for these publishers, I learned all these different skills that eventually led me to my current job, which is being the community and social media marketing manager for Roll20, which is a huge online virtual tabletop character creation marketplace, and it's weird to think about, like, if my brother didn't get me that gift card randomly to a place called Cool Stuff Inc., you know, maybe this would have happened, maybe it wouldn't have, but it's just so wild to think about, like, the trajectory of, like, oh, I started off as just like wanting to play board games, and then now I'm in the industry for
now it's your career basically is games. I love to just thinking of just the board game and I guess the tabletop community at large. I always find it interesting just looking back, you know, even into like early 2000s, like mid to early 2000s, and then like into the 90s. It was such like, I feel like just such a white community. Like, it's like, especially like thinking of like, oh, a family having a board game night, you're like, that's a Caucasian family thing to do, you know? But now, you know, 20 something years later, it has become such, you know, bigger and so much more like diverse, you know, different sexualities, different minority groups and stuff. I hope to just like pick your brain of like, you think, what is it that draws, you know, because like all these different marginalized communities into this space of tabletop, of board games?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the media we consume, right? So in the 90s and early 2000s, diversity and inclusion and DEI programs, they weren't really talked about. Like, they just wanted to sell, and what sold was middle class white America. So we think about board game nights, and we never assume that, like, oh, there's like mahjong, there are Chinese checkers, there's different cultures that are playing tabletop games. They're just not talked about because it's not marketable. They're not on TV playing board games and these sitcoms, etc., etc. So what I personally think, like, that draws people to specifically storytelling, and especially as tabletop RPGs are continuing to grow, and we're not scared to have these conversations of having all white tables or having all men at the table when it comes to like these bigger programming, is that like I think the stories have always been there. I think we just feel more empowered and more excited to step into the spotlight because we start seeing ourselves in media. We start seeing ourselves at these tables on our TV screens or at conventions, and there's starting to be spaces like the BIPOC Lounge that I help run at Gen Con, where it's just a space carved out for people of color, and that whole space is put on by Rose Gauntlet, which is a board game and tabletop RPG publisher. I always shout them out because Isaac and Lindsay over there are literally doing the work as a POC and femme-led publishing company. They're putting in their own money and they're putting in the work to provide spaces like this. So I really do think that just over time and just how media has changed, and it is probably part of growing up with the internet and being able to pick and choose who we follow and be able to search for people that look like us and people that represent a bigger part of what society looks like that is not just, you know, middle America, which is again something to consider, because I think without the internet, without being able to network through social media and find content, podcasts, streams, what have you, we wouldn't have the diversity that we see now. So a lot of it really does have to do with the resources and being able to feel confident to step into a space and feel that it's a strong enough space, not just a safe space, but a place where you can speak up when you see something that isn't representative of your culture and you feel like it's being appropriated, or being able to call that stuff out and have a conversation around it without feeling like your safety is at risk. I think that has become something positive that I've seen over time from the early 2000s to now.
Yeah, it's a kind of like it takes a village vibe, but it takes a village to bring up the entire village. You know, it's a lot of, I think, yeah, it all just goes back to that, you know, sense of community, that sense of connectiveness to, you know, your fellow enjoyers of this media, and your fellow POC, your fellow queer people.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest things was, like, this was pre-lockdown, but I remember I had built up a following through board games and tabletop RPGs on Twitter, and I said I only want to play D&D, but I want an all queer table. That's my only stipulation. And people started sounding off, and then RK Wild was one of the first people that stepped up and said, hey, we can do this. It doesn't have to be a streamed game. It can be a home game. And that was, to me, that was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I don't have to pretend to perform. I can just be at a table with all queer people. And other people chimed off. We found mutuals. We became friends. And we had my first, like, long-term campaign. And it was with all queer people. And I was just like, this is where it's at. Like, not having to mask or to feel like you have to code switch, or these like small things that you do throughout your day-to-day to make sure that you assimilate into like the majority culture, especially like, if you work in a corporate office or whatever. It was just like a sense of like calming, of like I can relax and I can be as weird, or I can pull references that people won't side-eye me for, and it was just like a very exciting table to be at. And I always think RK is one of the people, I always say that they are one of the main reasons that like I got so excited about it, because they let us build the world together. They weren't gatekeepy with information. They took the time to explain things. So RK is one of the, again, pivotal reasons that like I deep dove into it, because I'm like, if a DM like RK exists out there, that means there's even more. I just don't know. Me, Danny, doesn't know about them. So I'm going to do my best to go out and like look for these people or look for these tables and highlight it, because these types of people that are in our community, those are the people that are growing our community and creating these safe and strong spaces and allow for people to not just like play games, but to like invest a part of themselves in the games too.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to take a sec, stepping away from gaming, stepping away from the table, I suppose. Outside of, board games, outside of tabletop, what do you, like, where do you find your, I guess, your community outside of that? Where do you find, like, what you do for fun and stuff?
Yeah, so before I got into games, my past life self, my background, I don't really have a traditional background in games. I have my bachelor's degree in public health, and I have my master's degree in exercise science. And before that, I worked in gyms, I worked in corporate offices, I worked with HR and health and wellness programs, and I did a lot of health and wellness coordination. And a lot of the stuff that I learned to love was to go out into like my community centers and volunteer my time. So a lot of my community really does come from the community. Volunteering my time, whether it comes to helping coach powerlifting for the Special Olympics, or holding some fitness classes for the Boys and Girls Club, to just volunteering my time at soup kitchens, or even outside of people, being able to volunteer my time with the local cats and dog shelters, the Humane Society out here. So a lot of my previous life stuff was being an active part of my community. Of course, that involves being gay as well, so volunteering my time to help put together Orlando's Pride, which has come out with Pride in October, and
which I've been to. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's a great time, and it's such a vibrant place, especially in the armpit of hell that is Florida, especially currently. But I've made very strong connections in the LGBTQ plus community here as well. And yeah, a lot of my time spent outside of games and tabletop is either with the community or it's really with my close friends. We're usually doing something active, so I know gym time doesn't sound like a time to create community, but going with friends, going on hikes, things like that, is where I find myself spending most of my time. Or at buffets. I also love buffets. I'm a low-key foodie. I will give you that that master chef critique on my Instagram at local places, and being able to explore the cultures and the variety of food that we have in this melting pot of Orlando is also how I spend my time, because I love food.
What's your favorite like cuisine to have a buffet of?
Oh, so it's cheating, but I always just say Asian cuisine, because people are like, oh my god, that's just like Chinese, but no, but like all Asian cuisine.
So much, yeah.
Indian food, Thai food, Filipino food, Chinese food, Korean, like Japanese, like I think Asian people have the best cuisine, TBH. Might be biased, but very good. I do. So when someone asks me what my favorite cuisine is, I usually say that. But usually, if someone asks me like what my favorite food is, it's like my mom's home cooking. She makes this Chinese roast pork belly with like braised eggs, and it's just there's like soy and brown sugar, and it's just like sweet and savory and delicious. But also, again, this is turning into a food podcast.
Yeah.
But also, I grew up in the South, so Southern home cooking is also one of my favorite, I guess, cuisines. So
yeah.
Fried chicken, collards, beans and rice, and it's just Southern food is also just like
yeah. I did not appreciate just like how much I love Southern food until I moved out of the South. Because, like, I've lived in South Carolina my whole life, and now I live in New York, and it's like finding a good sweet tea is
It's
impossible.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Like even like the Popeyes up here is different, you know? Like it's difficult. They have started getting canes,
Oh
Raising
yeah.
Canes, which are
Yeah, yeah.
pretty good, but that's yeah, sorry. Now I literally just ate dinner right before this and I'm getting hungry again.
Raising
Yeah.
Cane's was my college drunk food. That and pizza.
Hmm.
So every time I think about Raising Cane's, I think thank you for making sure I do not have a massive hangover
Yeah,
tomorrow.
it's the house that built you for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, you said a little bit ago you were talking about kind of your time at, like the gym and how it's not really like seen as like, oh, building a community or building a culture there. But it is funny because when I was more regularly like working out when I lived in the Carolinas, there I made so many friends and like such a community in the gym of just like because I would go at the same time, like however many days a week, and it would always be people who had a similar schedule, and we would always see each other, and like even if we didn't talk, like there were people that I was like, oh, I know this person is here. I know they're going to be doing this and this.
Hmm.
And like it was nice to have that just that space, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I feel like you can find community anywhere
Hmm.
if you look hard enough. But especially in things that you enjoy, I think it's easier to create those connections, especially if it's a habitual thing or uh, it's something that you feel comfortable in. I think I think that's a great way to create community. But there's always that idea of like how do we curate a space where people feel comfortable coming in as well? Because a lot of
Yeah.
times that 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 can be scary. Doing something new, whether it's going to the gym for the first time or playing your first tabletop RPG, having that barrier taken down by just like being a friendly face or smiling at someone or taking the step to introduce yourself at conventions or at the gym or
Hmm.
wherever, I think those are small steps that we can do to try to create stronger bonds and like a more openness when it comes to trying out new things.
Yeah. That's yeah, I always say the hardest part of, trying new things, whether it is getting into tabletop, whether it's going to the gym, the hardest part is starting.
Mm,
Like that's like as soon as you get that, it's as soon as you get that motion started, you just keep going.
yeah.
And it gets easier the more you do it.
Mhm.
Um, Also, talking about the gym, I would be remiss if I did not ask for like just a little flex from you.
For free? I'm just kidding.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. This interview is
uh,
all worth it just for that.
it is weird though because I do I've learned to love my body.
Mhm.
It's been a huge. I talk about it a lot on my social platforms too, but it's been like a journey to like learn to love a bigger body and to learn to love myself. And I've done that through social media and being able to uh, feel comfortable in my skin through social media. But even like it's so weird because like I guess I can control that. So like when I'm taking my
Mhm.
pictures or whatever, I can do it. But sometimes like I'm getting better at it. But like if someone like asked me to flex for something like
Mhm.
on stream or in a picture, I'm just like, oh, me right now. It's just so weird in real time to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that was just a weird aside that
Mhm.
I've been trying to just say yes and do it because you do it all the time anyways. Why not?
Yeah. Great. I think that is all the questions I have for you, which does bring us to our game section of the interview. The game I have for you today is a game I'm calling Game of Fauxs, which is Feaux, Fauxs, not the other one. I have here 5 descriptions of tabletop role playing games, some of which I pulled directly from Drive Through RPG and are real actual games you can go out and acquire now. Some I came up with on my own. I'm going to read you these, and you're going to have to tell me if you think they are a real game or a faux game. And bonus points if you can figure out what the game is, if you know it you know.
Okay.
All right.
I love knowing you before this interview because I know you had so much fun creating these little games.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah,
So
cool.
it's either friend, aka it's real, or it's faux. It's fake ass
There we go.
bitch.
There we go. That works. Here's game number 1. As a magical girl, you will clutch your tragic struggles tight, seeking to score defiant triumphs against the darkness of an oppressive society. The game reinterprets the classic examples of the genre to create an allegory for self-discovery and queer identity. The text uses magical girl as a shorthand, but your magical girls need not be girls necessarily, but people whose identities put them at the margins.
I'm pretty confident in this one. Only because if it is what I'm thinking about, I got to write some short fiction for it. So I'm going to guess that this is a friend, this is real, and that it's Girl by Moonlight.
It is, yes. That was our warm up because I was like, I knew you did stuff with Go by Moonlight, which is by Evil Hat Productions. Wonderful game. I have the book. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but I have it, and I'm like just waiting.
You should play. It's so good. It's a little crunchier than I thought because I thought it was a powered by the Apocalypse system, but it's forged in the dark.
Yeah.
So things are a little crunchier, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. But yeah, you got that one.
Yes.
Here's number 2. High on the hill was a lonely goat herd. In this game, you play as a governess in Australia to a family of up to 7 children and one very stoic and serious father. You will care for and teach the children, deal with the haughtiness of the father, and possibly even escape from dangerous militant men. Will it be as easy as Do Re Mi, or will it not be one of your favorite things?
I'm gonna say this one is a faux.
It is a faux. It is just the plot of The Sound of Music. So.
That makes sense. I actually have not seen The Sound of Music, but the Do Re Mi makes sense now.
Mhm,
I know
mhm.
of The Sound of Music.
Yeah. That's
But
I.
I really hope that one, if it was real, it was written by a non-man.
Yeah. Well, now I know what I'm gonna be writing next. So yeah, you got that one. That one was fake.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so good.
You're
I
so
was
good
worried
at
about
this. Yeah. Also, I am. The next time I see you, we are going to be watching The Sound of Music.
Let's do it.
So here's number 3. In this RPG, you might face off with the triple threat triad in Republic City, travel through a spirit portal to rescue a missing child, negotiate peace between kingdoms, pursue enemies throughout the nations, and even learn a thing or two from beloved characters.
I'm gonna say this one's real. This one's a friend, and I think it's Avatar.
Yeah, it's Avatar Legends,
Okay.
produced by Magpie.
Yeah, the Republic City.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I thought about trying to like paraphrase that out, but I was like, no, leave that in there. We'll leave it in there.
Honestly, if you didn't leave it in there, I may have not gotten it.
Yeah, because I did take out because like they say the word Avatar like 3 times in that description that I had to take out. So yeah, you're 3 for 3. You're on fire.
A game master?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Here is game number 4. Shh, be very quiet. This game is played in nearly complete hushed tones as you attempt to move around and escape a booby-trapped building, all while trying not to wake your terrifying captor. You'll make your way across the map, finding supplies and avoiding the noisy traps that lay in the darkness. Don't wake him.
I'm thinking this is a board game. This sounds like Don't Wake Daddy.
It is. It's Don't Wake Daddy. it's yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Like,
a little bit of a trick question, but you know.
Yeah. Although I feel like having whispering at a table as a mechanic is You might be onto something.
I would be on
TBH.
something. I was like, what if, like, how like Alice is missing? You use your text mixed with "Don't Wake Daddy." Can we get it to work?
Yeah.
TM. No one steal that. Um,
You said TM. You did.
yeah. Here's our final game. Let's see if you get 5 for 5. In this darkly humorous role-playing game, the computer loves you but is insane/happy. You will be sent on impossible/glamorous missions filled with catch-22s or fun and satire or safety. Your teammates are out to kill or support you, and you are out to kill/protect them. All in all, your missions will be dangerous or entertaining, and you will likely die or be promoted.
Okay. So this is when my gamer brain pops on. So I'm like,
Mhm.
it was friend, foe, friend, foe. So is this one? I don't know what game it is. If it is a game. I feel like I don't know. So if that was a game description, it's very thematic game. If it wasn't, you are good at writing game descriptions. I'm gonna say that one is a friend.
It is a real game. It is Paranoia by Mongoose Publishing.
That's fun.
Yeah. So yeah, you got 5 for 5. Good job.
Wow. What do I win?
Love and appreciation from me.
Mm,
When I see you at
I'll
PAX,
add that.
I'll give you one of these stickers. How about that?
Oh hell yeah.
Great.
Also, why didn't I know you weren't going to PAX?
I am going to PAX. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It says it's on my Twitter name. Dan, going to PAX.
You know what? There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, yeah. Also, I'm going to link the drive-through RPG links to all of those real games down below if those sounded interesting and you want to check them out. So yeah, thank you so much for playing. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm proud of myself.
yeah, you are a games master for sure.
I'm games master.
Up next, I would like to give you a chance to shine a spotlight on something happening in the TTRPG world that you think other people should be paying attention to.
Yeah, feel free to follow me on social media because this is one of my favorite things to do is to meet people and learn about their projects and scream about them from the top of my lungs. But I do want to specifically shout out 2 different queer people of color that have been pivotal in how I perceive tabletop RPGs. The first one is Transplanar. It's a POC-led, all-trans streaming group, and they are just absolutely phenomenal. It's ran by Connie Chong, and they're just an absolute 100% like all-star when it comes to storytelling. And you might be able to mark my words here, but I think Connie, the way that they're doing things and how he's handling things with Transplanar, I think they're gonna, like, if they get in studio funding and all that, I think they can be the next big Dimension 20 / Critical Role, because their stories are just so real and so poignant, but also so different from the stories that we hear in like our high fantasy type deal. So check out Transplanar, check out Connie. The whole cast is absolutely just phenomenal to follow on their own respects too. But huge shout out to Transplanar just for being, again, this not just safe space, but a strong space. And I actually think I say strong space a lot, but I think Connie also refers to it as a brave space where they can talk about tough things that are going on in the community and how stories and words can be a tool to talk about it and to create these worlds that you might not even think you can create. So Transplanar is, I love them so much.
Yeah, anytime anyone mentions Transplanar, Connie Chong is probably, in my opinion, one of the best storytellers in like the TTRPG space. Like,
So good.
so good. Please check them out. And what was the other one?
The other one is Ravenous Tales. So Raven, formerly known as Wreck-It Raven on Twitch, she's a streamer, and she is starting. It's going on now, but she started a table called The Wretched Harvest, which I am part of. But even if I wasn't a part of this, it is this dark, gothic story about loss and trauma and the beauty in the beauty in the darkness, I guess you could say. The VODs are up right now. It's an ongoing stream. We stream every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. But Raven has been a very outspoken person as a femme black woman in our space, and I want to give them all the love that I can and all the support that I can, because she does put her heart and soul in things, and they take the time to invest in other people as well, and to call things out and to signal boost, and they've created an amazing table that is telling stories that, again, I don't think that has the spotlight, so like spotlight of what is hot right now, but they don't care. She just wants to tell these dark and twisted stories that are filled with charisma and lore, and like a darker, bespoke type of vibe. So between Transplanar and Ravenous Tales, I think these are kind of like two ideas, two streams, two things that we can consume to try to break out the idea of like what storytelling can look like, what it should look like, what it can expand to across like our everyday like big media right now.
Cool. Thank you so much for shining a spotlight. Everyone, make sure you check those out. We'll throw a link for them down in the description below. As we finish up here, you kind of plugged some of the stuff you're working on, but I would love to give you a chance to plug yourself. What can people, what should people be watching out for? Where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, I do have a few NDA things right now, so just follow me on socials for that. I am on Wretched Harvest, which is on Raven's channel, Ravenous Tales, on Twitch, 8 p.m. every Tuesday. If this is, you said this is coming out
probably mid-December.
Mid-December. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the campaign's still going on, but I am a guest writer in a project called You Don't Meet in a Tavern, where it's a collection and a supplement where you can get different ideas, where you can take your fantasy stories and maybe not put them in a tavern, but maybe put them in a beautiful flower meadow, or a haunted doll's house, or in the middle of a volcano. Like, you don't have to start in a tavern. So check that out if it's still going. And the last thing I'll plug is that I have a Substack, and if you don't know what Substack is, it is a newsletter / blogging platform. My Substack is called Digital Thickness, and my goal for that is to help people bulk up their social strategies, strengthen their digital marketing, and flex their online presence, while staying connected to me and what I'm doing as well. So if you're ever curious about like social media trends or social media marketing, community management, anything and all in between, my goal for Digital Thickness is to lower the barrier of entry for anybody that might want to do what I am currently doing. So check out Digital Thickness. That's digitalthickness.substack.com.
Cool. Yeah. And what are your personal socials? Where can people find you?
Yes. My personal socials, you can find me all over the internet at Brutal Dan. That's BR00TALDAN. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky for microblogging. If you want to follow me for flexing stuff, feel free to check out my Instagram. If you want to see just random chaos, check out my TikTok. And if you want to be friends with me and my mom, check out me out on Facebook. I think that's still a thing.
I think so. I don't think it's imploded yet. Well, Danny, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your vast knowledge of the TTRPG and board game space. As always, I am Dan the Baker. You can find me at Dan_the_Baker wherever I want you to. Make sure you stick around here on Open Table Adventures. You can check out Danny on our Park Strangers, which, every episode of that should be up by now. You can check out some of our, he's playing ZZ, our lovely influencer friend. You can check out we have some recipe videos that have come out. We have our holiday one-shot that is coming out soon. Just going to be Kids on Bikes. I'm so excited. I don't think we have a title for it yet, but you'll find it. And yeah, make sure you just subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the fun things we have for you. Thank you all so much for joining, and you are always welcome to pull up a seat. Bye-bye now.